Gospel of Mark is tough to read if we don't read it in context. We, as inclusive and independent Catholics, are proud to say that we acknowledge reality, that sometimes people need to be divorced. Sometimes people need to get remarried. This reading is often weaponized against folks seeking divorces. And so I think the first thing we need to talk about is why that doesn't work. How many of us really understand marriage in the ancient world? I would venture to say most of us don't. Marriage in the ancient world was not, oh, Johnny and Susie are in love and now they're getting married. Marriage in the ancient world was Johnny and Susie's dad are exchanging property. Johnny and Susie's dad are making a transaction. And we've gotten rid of that part of marriage because that's not right. But we haven't gotten rid of the expectations that surround it. And how sad is that? Furthermore, I think it's important for us to understand, that the idea of marriage in the ancient world, or the idea of divorce in the ancient world. If we're understanding marriage as a property transaction, what is divorce? Well, divorce, as we can see here in the reading, is about the man divorcing the woman. Jesus didn't say Moses made it so that the wife can get a divorce when she wants, did he? No, he said Moses made it so that you who are men can write a bill of divorce for their wife, to divorce their wife. And what happened to women in the ancient world when they were divorced? Well, let's look at what happens to women who are widows. Women who were widows in the Hebrew Bible are those that were called to be taken care of. Again, why? Because they're in this power structure on the lowest rung. Women as a whole are below all men, married or not. Women who are without a man are without the ability to do many things: conduct transactions, buy property, own property. They're without the ability to testify on their own behalf. In this society where men dominate every element, a divorced woman is at the lowest rung. And so what Jesus was telling us in today's reading has nothing to do with modern marriage and everything to do with protecting the vulnerable. The women of the ancient world who were divorced by their husbands were often the ones sitting at Jesus' table. Those that had been forced into prostitution to take care of themselves, to feed their families. These were the most vulnerable among Jesus. It's important for us then to take that reading, the context that it sets before us, and bring it to life today. What Jesus is saying when Jesus says, do not allow yourselves this kind of divorce, is really a message of compassion and care. He's telling us to take care of the least among us. Now, folks, we also read in today's first reading about how it is that Adam was in a beautiful marriage with Eve, one that he loved. He was alone, lonely, and found someone that completed him. And how beautiful is that? That is the message of marriage. It's not the marriage that we see in the ancient world for the most part, but it's the marriage we see today. Amen? And if that's the kind of marriage we see today, then we know that the marriage that Jesus is talking about should not exist. And yet, in many parts of the world, they do. So it's our calling to take care of them. To be like the Holy Family. Joseph and Mary, despite many traditions surrounding them, it seems were in love. It was not likely simply just an arranged marriage. They were two very poor people from a town in the middle of nowhere, so a transactional marriage would have been a little more complicated for them, though not impossible. They would have at least had some say in who they got to be married to. And the fact that Joseph allowed Mary to live when he could have killed her for being pregnant tells us that he cared about her. And I know that's really low bar. You're like, Father Brett, what the heck? You didn't kill her, so he loved her? But that's the way the ancient world was set up, folks. It's hard for us to get our mind around it. But the reality of what I talked about at the beginning with ancient world marriage doesn't mean that all marriages were loveless, but it helps us understand the power structure that represented marriage, the power structure that surrounded marriage. And those sorts of power structures hurt people today. Those sorts of power structures, the way that we organize those who have all of the power and those that don't, lead to inequity. They lead to marginalization, and they lead to laws that hurt people. Folks, we as Christians are blessed to be able to engage in a sacramental church. A church that does recognize the beauty of love and the union of two spirits. Folks, we are blessed to be a part of a church that seeks to minister to the least among us. Jesus' message, you see, is bound up almost like a prophecy. Jesus' message today is first about marriage, then about children, and it's all about power, and it's all about us today. It's all of these things together. It's the ancient world when he's talking about the way marriage is set up. It's the modern world when he's talking about fixing power inequity. Our church is called to do that. We as inclusive Catholics know that we have a beautiful and wonderful calling that allows us to be present for those that need us. Jesus was present for those around him that were cast out. I would encourage each and every one of us this week to find ways that we can be present for others. Amen?
Amen.